Good afternoon, fellow time travelers and energy enthusiasts. Today, we're about to embark on a fascinating historical detective story that might just change how you think about your wellness routine. Imagine this. While most of us are taught that Qigong is as Chinese as dim sum, there's some compelling evidence that similar practices were happening in ancient Egypt when the pyramids were still under, let's say, warranty. That's right. Long before Instagram yogis and wellness influencers, ancient Egyptians may have been the original energy workers. Striking poses that would make modern day practitioners just nod in admiration and recognition. This isn't just an academic trivia, you see. It's the beginning of a year-long journey I'm undertaking to explore these ancient practices and their remarkable benefits for our modern day lives. So grab your metaphorical passport as we travel across continents and millennia to discover how these ancient wisdom traditions connect, what they can teach us, and how the body's energy systems don't really care which civilization gets credit. They do know that it works. So, what exactly is all this Qigong business anyway? So, before we start connecting these historical dots, let's make sure that we're all on the same page of what Qigong actually is. If you've ever seen something in an action figure, you could imagine something between an interpretive dance and maybe someone pretending to hold an invisible beach ball. And move it. That wouldn't be necessarily entirely wrong. Qigong, pronounced Qi Gong, is essentially a practice that combines three elements: gentle and intentional movement, controlled breathing, and focused mental attention. The name itself tells us that we're working with Qi, which means life energy or vital force. That's the invisible stuff that supposedly makes everything tick, while gone, you see, really is a cultivation or a practice. So, quite literally, we're practicing our life energy. It's like gardening, but instead of plants, we're kind of cultivating our own internal energy ecosystem. Think of Qigong as a Swiss Army knife of a wellness practice. Some styles focus on healing specific elements. That'll be the medical Qigong. Others build strength and power, maybe the martial Qigong, while some aim for spiritual development and consciousness expansion, spiritual Qigong. Despite these variations, most forms share common elements, specific postures, flowing movements, rhythmic breathing, and mental focus, all designed to get your energy flowing like a well-maintained plumbing system. You gotta love it. So what's the Egyptian plot twist? Kind of what's up with the East and the West? Now, here's where our historical narrative gets very fascinating. The conventional wisdom tells us that Qigong developed in China thousands of years ago. But when we dig a little deeper, sometimes literal, in archaeological terms, we find compelling evidence that similar energy practices really existed in ancient Egypt, potentially predating Chinese traditions. And then, Dr. Muata Ashby, who has written over 80 books, he has written so many books on ancient wisdom that it really could fill a small library, and has uncovered as evidence that ancient Egyptians have really sophisticated systems for working with subtle energy. In temple carvings and ancient arts, figures appear in specific postures that look very similar to our modern Qigong or yoga postures. And no, they aren't just stretching after a long day of pyramid building. That's not it, or to improve their body. These were systematic practices for health and spiritual development. The ancient Egypts called their land Kemet, which is why we use the term Kemetic when talking about these Egyptian practices. And their energy work included things like physical postures and movement documented in temple carvings, ancient Egyptian workout videos, if you would, breathing techniques described in ancient texts. Ah, the original breathwork influencers, energy cultivation methods similar to modern practices, and holistic approach connecting both the physical health with spiritual growth. This isn't just academic speculation, you see. Dr. George Love's research in From Kemet to Tibet really shows how Kemet, the ancient name for Egypt, was the original of many medical traditions around the world. And as various empires came and conquered and ruled Egypt, Kemet, medical knowledge spread throughout Greece and Rome, Persia, India, and eventually China, like a game of ancient telephone, but with healing practices of garbled messages, something similar to that. So let's talk about how Egyptian wisdom went viral the slow and ancient way. Ancient Egypt wasn't some isolated civilization doing their own thing in a corner. It was equivalent to an ancient world superpower of intellectual hub. Knowledge spread through trade routes, conquests, scholar exchanges, the ancient version of going viral, just with a lot more maybe camels and considerably a little bit longer download times than what we experience now. Egyptian wisdom influenced Greece. You know, Greek scholars really did a lot of their studies abroad in programs in Egypt, returning when they came back with knowledge about mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. It's like when your math teacher made you learn different theorems, you were actually touching a piece of knowledge that may have had Egyptian fingerprints all over it. Then there's Rome. So when Rome conquered Egypt, they didn't just take the land, they really absorbed the Egyptian healing practices, religious practices, even architectural structures. Woo, got that one out. The Romans were excellent at they were excellent at appropriating other cultures' best hits, let's say. They took what was the best and try to incorporate it for their own. I don't know about that. Did the Egyptians get some money for that? Something to think about. Then there's India. The trade routes connected Egypt and India, really allowing for exchange of medical and spiritual knowledge. Some scholars even believe Egyptian practices influenced early yoga and Ayurvedic medicine, which means that your downward dog may have a distant Egyptian cousin. Ooh, that's a note to take home with. And then there's China and Tibet. While there was no, let's say, direct contact, it was a little bit limited because there was no like Egyptian Chinese Zoom calls, unfortunately. Knowledge flowed through what we know as the Silk Road and other trade networks. So, about the 8th century, Tibetan medicine had become a really viable United Nations way of healing traditions, incorporating elements from Egyptian, Greek, Indian, and Chinese practices. These cross-cultural exchanges created just a rich tapestry of healing wisdom that eventually developed into various energy practices that we know of today. It's like the original open source project with civilization building upon and maybe refining each other's code. That's a way to look about it. I guess I'll use a strengths perspective here. Then we can't be dismissed without talking about breathwork, the original respiratory therapist. One of the most fascinating connections between Kemetic practices and Qi Gong involves breathwork, the conscious control of breathing for health and spiritual purposes. The pyramid text, which really dates back to about 2400 BCE, yes, it's about 4,400 years ago, mostly older than most countries, and definitely older than you or I. Really describe various breathing techniques used by ancient Egyptians. These aren't just random mentions, they're really specific practices integrated into spiritual and healing traditions. Some researchers believe that alternate nostril breathing, a technique where you breathe in one nostril at a time to balance your energy, may have originated in ancient Egypt. Well, there's kind of some conflicting information, and we really don't have an Egyptian YouTube tutorial explicitly demonstrating this technique. There were symbolic references and indirect descriptions that suggest similar practices existed. You know, the Egyptians really understood something fundamental about modern science, which they are now starting to hopefully confirm that breath is life. The hieroglyphics for breath was closely related to the symbol for life, showing that we aren't just casual mouth breathers in and out, but sophisticated practitioners who understood the connection between respiration and vitality. Now, let's talk a little bit about the serpent power connection when cobras were cool back then. Another fascinating parallel between Egyptian and Eastern practices involves what we call the serpent power. The concept of powerful energy that just rises up through the spine. And in ancient Egypt, this was symbolized by the cobra that appears on the foreheads of the pharaohs and the deities. This wasn't just the world's earliest fashion statement, it represented awakened spiritual energy rising from the base of the spine to the head. Keep that in mind. Egyptian texts referred to this as Arat Sakem, or serpent power, a concept remarkably similar to the Indian traditions that we later called Kundalini. Both describe a dormant energy coiled at the base of the spine, practices to awaken and rise up the energy. Three, a transformation that occurs as the energy rises, and a spiritual awakening when the energy reaches the crown. The Egyptian also called this concept Sefa Ba Ra, or the seven souls of Ra. You know, the seven energy centers, is that sounding familiar along the spine that closely parallels what we know of as chakras? Each center has specific qualities and spiritual functions. These similarities are just too striking similar to be coincidental and suggest either shared origins, which I kind of believe more, versus the parallel discoveries because of the differences in time period of the same human energy system. It is as if different civilizations were mapping the same internal human landscape, just using different languages and labels and landmarks for that. So, what would be the benefits that maybe makes big pharma a little nervous? So, whether you approach these practices from an Egyptian or Chinese perspective, the benefits are remarkable and increasingly supported by modern research. So, let's talk a little bit about those physical benefits. Improved cardiovascular health. Studies show decreased heart rate, lower blood pressure with regular practice. Your heart will thank you, even if it doesn't send you a card. Aww. Then there's the enhanced immune function. Research indicates improvements in immune markers and especially with consistent practice. your white blood cells essentially become these little tiny ninjas in the body. Then there's pain management, effective for addressing chronic pain conditions and musculoskeletal issues. Who needs ibuprofen when you kind of have some ancient energy practices going on? Then there's improved balance and coordination, particularly benefit as we start to get older because there's a risk of fall. Fewer falls means fewer embarrassing moments. I've fallen and I can't get up. Those type of things. Increase energy and vitality. Both traditions emphasize the cultivation of the life force energy for enhanced vitality. You know, coffee is okay, I guess, for some, but cultivating your life force is a more sustainable energy plan. And then you say, what are the emotional and mental health benefits? Let me share. Cognitive enhancement. A 2020 review of 13 studies with over 893 participants found that Qigong improved cognition and memory after just 3 to 6 months of practice. Your brain literally gets an upgrade. Stress reduction. Oh, who doesn't need that? Regular practice reduces stress hormones and promotes relaxation. It's like a vacation for your nervous system, but without the expensive airfare and all the other stuff that you have to plan. Then there's emotional regulation. Techniques for releasing negative emotions and cultivating positive emotional states. Think of it like an emotional windstorm, right? Like that's just bringing all this stuff together in balance. Then there's improved mood. Studies show reduced depression and anxiety with consistent practice. Your brain chemistry gets just this gentle rebalancing. I love it. Oh, and there's mental clarity for enhanced focus and concentration through things like mindfulness really adds to the practice. Suddenly, those work meetings can now start becoming a bit bearable. So let's now explore some of the spiritual benefits. Connection to the cosmic forces. Both traditions teach methods to connect to and with universal and divine energies. It's like plugging into a boop, cosmic power outlet. Love it. Then there's spiritual development, practices for awakening your inner divinity, your higher consciousness. You might not start levitating, but your perspective certainly might. Energy protection. Who needs some of that? Techniques for creating protective energy fields against negative influences. Think about it as an ancient firewall for your energy system. Then there's enhanced intuition, development of subtle perspective and intuitive abilities. Your gut feelings get really an enhanced degree. I love it. It's like your gut becomes the doctor of your life. Well, maybe not life, but in terms of spiritual development, you start to trust that a little bit more, that intuition. And then there's the holistic integration, unification of the body, the mind, the spirit in this harmonious whole parts, all parts just start playing in the same orchestra together, making this beautiful exchange of energy. And cosmic energy is not just for the sci-fi enthusiasts either. The concept of cosmic energy is central to both Kemetic and Chinese energy practices, though expressed maybe a little different from their cultural frameworks. The Chinese perspective in traditional Chinese Qigong, particularly with advanced practices like cosmic healing Qigong, practitioners learn to specifically absorb cosmic energy to store it and use it for health and long life, rather than depleting your personal energy reserves like running your phone until the battery dies. Makes sense. You learn to become a conducive of spiritual life energy by keeping your phone plugged in this infinite power source. That's kind of what in terms of the Chinese perspective. And then the Kemetic perspective, the ancient Egyptians were cosmic energy enthusiasts before it was cool. Well, maybe it was cool back then, before we in this society felt it was cool. They recognized cosmic forces as embodied by various deities who represented natural and universal principles. In Kemetic practices, cosmic energy is often associated with specific gods and goddesses. For example, Ra, the sun god, represents the solar energy, while Nut, the sky goddess, embodies celestial energies. Thank you, Newt. Their sacred postures and movements were designed to align with and channel these divine cosmic forces, especially tuning the human body into a cosmic energy antenna. So, my year-long journey, because Rome wasn't built in a day and neither is an energy master. So, as I embark on this year-long journey exploring both Kemetic yoga and Kemetic Qigong, I'm not necessarily concerned with all the historical debates, a little curious about it, or which in civilization necessarily deserves credit, but I am guided in a particular way. But I am invested in the practices. So, what matters most is how these ancient practices really are going to transform modern day lives. So, starting the practice really, I think, has three key commitments. One, learning. Understanding the basic techniques, movements, principles behind the practice. This doesn't mean become a scholar within obtaining like a 15 degrees in ancient studies. It's just about learning the practice safely and effectively. Think about it as reading the manual before operating some heavy machinery, except the machinery is your own energy. Two, practicing, setting aside time. I'm going to set aside 30 minutes to 2 hours daily. That's my commitment. You might choose 10 to 15 minutes a day. Doing the actual movements, practicing the breathing, practicing the meditation. Consistency matters, maybe not as much as duration. It's like maybe brushing your teeth. We always prefer a quick toothbrush versus an occasional 3 hour dental extravaganza, right? And then three, the embodying process, bringing the awareness and principles from your practice into everyday life, staying mindful of your breath, your posture, your energy throughout the day. This is where the magic happens, when your practice stops being something you do and starts being something you are. The beauty of these practices is that they are accessible to everyone, regardless of age or fitness level or background. You don't need to be as flexible as a gymnast or as spiritual as a monk. You can start exactly where you are. That's the beauty. Even if you are on the couch wondering if all this ancient energy stuff is going to work, that's a good place to start wherever you're at. The connection between ancient Egyptian and Qigong opens up really a fascinating window into human history, showing how wisdom has flowed across civilizations thousands and thousands of years. It's like discovering that your favorite new song was actually a remix of something much older. What kind of emotions does that bring up for you? By exploring these ancient techniques, we're not just studying history, we're accessing practical tools for better health, greater peace of mind, deeper spiritual connection in our modern day lives. Whether these practices originated in Egypt or China or simultaneously in multiple areas, the change and the effectiveness is what is true. Your body's energy systems don't care necessarily about the historical attribution, but they will respond to what's with what works. And as I continue this year-long journey, I share updates of my experiences, my challenges, and my discoveries. Consider this as open invitation to enjoy me in exploring all of these practices, whether you're drawn to the Egyptian roots, the Chinese development, or simply want some practical benefits. After all, in a world where we are constantly looking for the next new thing, sometimes the most innovative solutions are actually thousands of years old. As the ancient Egyptians might have said if they had a bumper sticker, Kemetic, Qi Gong, and Kemetic yoga. It worked for the pharaohs, so it can work for you too. Thank you all for listening, and I hope that you enjoyed this time. It's going to be a fascinating journey into ancient wisdom for modern wellness. Stay tuned for my updates as my practice develops and deepens throughout the year. And just a small note. While I've done my best to present accurate information based on current research and scholarly perspectives, this is a living document, a living video, and it will evolve as my understanding deepens through the practice and the study. So I welcome dialogue, additional perspectives as we explore these traditions together. Thank you.